Him and I may be going back and forth. If anybody else join us via the internet, then we can converse that way to my liking. And so it may be informative to you as well. I hope that's the goal, is to get some formative, healthy information so that we can help each other through this process of recovery. And so this article that I have is brought to us by JourneyPureRiver.com. You can go online and retrieve this article as well. So without further ado, let's find out what today's title is. All right, today's title is going to be Repairing Relationships Broken by Addiction. This is our family support meeting, Repairing Relationships Broken by Addiction. All right, and so it starts us off with an introduction, and the introduction states, addiction is a chronic disease that can negatively affect a person's life and health. What many people don't know is that addiction is a family disease. It doesn't just make the sufferer sick, it also harms their loved ones, colleagues, and acquaintances. One of the casualties of a battle with addiction is the trail of damaged relationship it leaves in its wake. With the right kind of help, repairing relationship after addiction is possible, right? And so with the right kind of help, right, it says repairing relationships after addiction is possible. All right, so we get right into one of today's topic is addiction, a family disease. When one person in the family develops a substance use issue, it doesn't solely affect them, no matter their drug of choice. Their addiction is a family disease, causing stress to the people living in the family home and those closest to the addict. This disease has the potential to interfere with normal family life and routines. A person living with an addiction may behave erratically, depending on whether they are sober, drunk, high, or recovering from a time when they were drinking or using drugs. Someone in the throes of an active addiction may lie about how much they are drinking, how many drugs they are taking, or even that they are taking drugs. This is one of the symptoms of the disease, and it's common for addicts to manipulate loved ones if it means they can get resources. That is, money, food, a place to stay, a cell phone, etc. That will support the addiction, right? And so it can take time for a family to realize that they are dealing with a loved one who has developed an addiction to drugs or alcohol. The early stages of the disease can be subtle. Addicts can be very good at persuading family members that an episode where they were under the influence was an isolated one and that it will never happen again. All right? I remember that song. I used to sing that song quite often, and until people got hip to me and realized that it wasn't just no isolated episode. The article goes on to say, unfortunately, it will always happen again in the case of someone living with an addiction. Family members may react to a loved one's addiction by stepping in to help with the best of intention. Not everyone in the family will agree with trying to help the addicted family member. Some may think that taking a tough stance is the way to handle the situation. When family members disagree about the best way to deal with someone who has an addiction issue, conflict ensues, and the person with the addiction is left to continue drinking or using drugs, right? At the same time, the discussion or arguing goes on. The addict realizes that as long as the family is in turmoil, they'll be able to feed their addiction relatively undisturbed, right? They will not only allow anything to get in the way of feeding the addiction. Now, I've read several articles where it talks about how the person with the addiction not only affect the person but also the family member, and it gets to the point where the family members is arguing or in constantly conflict with one another of what stands to take, as this article said. And the person with the addiction, he slide or she may slide off to the side to continue on with the behavior. Mm-hmm. Wow, that is what they call manipulative at its best. You know? So that's why I say it is a family disease. Addiction is not just for the person who's suffering, but also the family members who are being affected. All right? Let's go into another topic of discussion that we would like to talk about or share. Number of families affected by addiction. This aspect of it is going to give us some statistic. This article was written a few years ago, but still I believe it's valid. To me, it is an eye-opener because when I start to realize the numbers and how staggering the numbers are, it just so alarming. So let's see what this article make mention of. Addiction is unfortunately all too common today. Families dealing with a loved one struggling with this chronic disease may feel like they are on their own, but these statistics may help put the issue into a different perspective. If you're just thinking that you are all alone and that you are the only person on your block, in your community, or wherever is going through it, you're not alone. According to the American Society of Addiction Medicine, about 21.5 million Americans aged 12 and older have a substance abuse disorder. Not 1 million, not 5 million, not 10 million, not even 15 million. This article says 21.5 million Americans aged 12 and older have a substance abuse disorder. That's major. Now, when you think of someone at the age of 12, what grade that you normally find?
Said what grade?
Yeah, that you find a child of that age. What grade?
I'm thinking what, 5th grade, 5th, 6th grade?
Oh, wow.
A little older, maybe 7th.
Well, they must have stayed back a lot of times.
Yeah,
7th grade.
7th grade.
Yeah, that's middle school.
Yeah.
You know, 7th, 8th.
8th grade, 13th, yeah.
Yeah. And then 14 to get into the high school.
Grade.
Yeah. So you figure someone just left elementary school. Because that's basically what happened with me. Around 12 years old, I started experimenting with just trying to taste alcohol. And then, you know, felt the little buzz and said, oh man, start acting all, you know, like a young child would do. And later on, want to try marijuana. And then start telling jokes and want to be the, you know, the jokester. Everybody, you know, get the laughing and all that stuff. So it's just when I think of think back on my life, 12 years old, and then I think of young people today, 12 years old. Because a lot of times, you know, you really can't see yourself at the time, how small, how fragile, how young you are, and how, you know, young in stature or short in stature and young in age. I look back at people who are 12 years old, 13. I said, wow. Put myself in back in those at that age. I said, wow, man, I was just a young kid, man.
I was a little older when I got my first taste, but my little brother, you know, my little brother was 13, and his best friend was 12. So their first time was that age.
Around that age.
And some friends of mine, their first time was that age. Yeah. Try this. And, you know, it's just all out of fun and curiosity and wanting, like you said, you want to laugh and be the jokester.
Playing all the time. And and not taking things serious. But now, like I said, now that I look back and I look and say, wow, what in the world was I thinking, you know? But so it's just like I stated earlier, this is an eye-opener to hear these numbers here in the United States of America. We have so many young people who are being affected, whether they are first-time users or those who have used over and over where it became addictive. That is something that we must think about as a nation. All right? Next point this article talks about, of this number, about 1.9 million people develop an addiction to prescription pain medicine. And 586,000 had an addiction to heroin. Whoa. At that age. Now, that was something I really didn't bother with at a young age. As I got older, like in my, mid-20s, like, yeah, about 20s, I started, dipping and dabbing in that aspect. But 12 years old, when you think, well, 586,000 had an addiction to heroin. 1.9 million people develop an addiction to prescription pain medicine. Approximately 23% of those people who use heroin develop an addiction to opioids, the class of pain medication that includes morphine, fentanyl, hydrocodone, codeine, and oxycodone, right? This article was written in 2013, right, 12 years ago. The number of Americans either dependent on alcohol or with problems related to alcohol use was 17.3 million. We're talking about alcohol now, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. So we have a large number of Americans at a very young age, either on drugs, developing addiction to pain medicine, heroin, and then you have a large number of Americans who became either dependent on alcohol with problems related to alcohol use, 17.3 million. Those are some numbers that I felt that we need to share because that is the seriousness of the addiction. And remember, this is a family. We're talking about family recovery support, family, loved ones. It's not always the parent. It's oftentimes the children may be overlooked or may not be given the added attention in which they need or the alternative outlet that they need. Because I know when I was 12 and 13, I wanted to play football, like team sport. We used to play neighborhood football without the equipment. But as we got older, my friends in our neighborhood, their parents was able to buy them cleats and helmets and pads. And I remember I couldn't, my mom, I grew up in a single household. My mom's, she worked like 2 jobs and she was like, I still can't afford. And it kind of like shadowed me because I'm like, oh man, I'm on the sideline. I'm watching them. They hitting, catching, running, doing drills. And I'm like, so that's how I got into other activity because I didn't get involved with the team sport thing, but I always loved sports. All right, moving right along. I don't want to get into a soapbox, but let's talk about rebuilding relationships and recovery. This is key. The key of healing from addiction and rebuilding trust after the addict in your family has hurt all of you, let you down, disappointed you, and caused chaos more times than you can count is a drug and alcohol treatment program, right? Professional help is needed for people struggling with drug addiction to learn how to live a sober lifestyle and learn how to live without their drug of choice. Part of this process is helping addicts come to terms with the fact that their lives don't immediately become better once they stop using chemicals. Clients in recovery must take responsibility. Let me read that again. This article says clients in recovery must take responsibility for and deal with the aftermath of events that occurred while they were still using drugs or alcohol. It was not their choice to use while they were in the cycle of addiction, but the harm caused to relationships with intimate partners, family members, and close friends still needs to be dealt with. While in a drug and alcohol treatment center, the staff and counselor can help clients using several different techniques. All right, and so we're going to cover some of these techniques that some treatment providers, not all, but I believe most treatment providers help people deal with relationship issues or repairing relationships by utilizing these tools. Set realistic expectations. A newly sober client may feel optimistic about their progress in early sobriety and ready for a fresh start in a relationship. They may not be focused on the past, where there likely was a pattern of several years of harmful behavior in the relationship. These issues cannot be resolved overnight. Even if the client sincerely apologizes for past actions, any action taken toward rebuilding the relationship is a victory, and these small steps must be celebrated. So a lot of times, we probably shared this over quite often, where it talks about we have to give people, Mr. Seriano, right? Good afternoon, all right. Where we talk about we have to give people time to heal. And now this article talks about it lets us know celebrating the small things. If we can get over by even someone accepting our apology, that is a small victory. Oftentimes we try to wait till everything's just honky-dory, everything's, A-OK, then we want to, I'm the good person. But, oftentimes even just having a conversation with someone that we hurt in the past and they're willing to hear us out, it's a celebration, something that we can look forward to. Not just pat yourself on the back, but just be encouraged to say, you know what, I'm working on some new behaviors. Rebuilding trust will take time, all right? After a pattern where trust has been betrayed repeatedly, rebuilding it will be a lengthy process. Someone who is living with an addiction will always put feeding their disease first. To ensure that they keep a steady supply of their drug of choice, they are prepared to lie, cheat, and steal if it means they can get their next fix or drink. This pattern is also used to hide the addiction or its extent from others to keep it going. Next one, learn healthy communication methods. This is good right here. Communication is a two-way street, better known as dialogue, all right? And it includes both talking and listening. When listening to someone else speak, many people do not hear what the other person is saying, right? They are waiting for a conversation break so that they can make their next point. This is not the best atmosphere to have a healthy discussion. So they call that active listening. That's one of the tools. If you ever been in treatment, if you ever learned this in some type of training, active listening is always good because you're letting the person know that you are very attentive to what they're saying and you respect what they have to say as far as getting their point across. All right? During treatment, a client will be able to learn effective ways to communicate with others and how to truly listen to what another person is saying. There are healthy ways to deal with conflicts that don't end up with someone feeling as though they need to tune out by using drugs or having a drink. Clients will also learn that it's important to resolve issues without resorting to emotional blackmail, trying to guilt someone into doing what you want, storming out and disappearing, or any other strategies they may have been using in the past. Friends and families will feel more comfortable expressing themselves directly if they think they will be heard. All right? Effective communication, right? Techniques lower the risk of petty disputes and teach clients what to do if the conversation gets too heated. What are some of the, if I may ask, if I'm gonna ask you, Will, I'm gonna ask you, Mr. Serrano, what is one technique that one can use if a petty dispute, all right, or if say if I'm having this conversation with someone, and the conversation, the person who's doing the talking is becoming real verbally loud. What strategy that I can use to calm the situation?
I was about a year ago. I was in that situation.
Okay.
But I didn't use the skills that I should have used.
Okay, you're honest.
You know.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
When that person was getting loud, I figured they're not listening. So I got to get louder.
You got louder.
And then that person got more loud.
That's right.
Then I got more loud. And now we're having an argument.
Yeah.
The situation was quite petty, but, you know, it relates to addiction.
Yeah. Well, how could you handle that much better?
The opposite.
The opposite.
I would have, cooler heads would have prevailed. I would have calmed down, first of all, and maybe change the setting. If we need to talk about this, let's go have lunch. Let's go sit down somewhere. Let's go take a walk. Let's remove ourselves from this area, and so we can talk.
Okay. Good. I like that. Mr. Serrano, what would have done differently in that situation?
I don't run into a lot of those situations. By trait, I'm just a person that goes back and forth. But I've learned to, a lot of times, I use this phrase, let's agree to disagree, and leave it there.
Okay.
Because sometimes it takes two people to disagree to start arguing an argument. So if we agree to disagree, because my point is my point, like, and your opinion is your opinion. If we both feel strong about it, then neither one of us is gonna budge. So that's my phrase. Let's agree to disagree and let's move on. Or I try to disengage. I'll just be quiet. I'm like, oh, you can speak all you want, and just don't entertain. Sometimes our problem is we entertain the situation.
Yeah. By like Will was saying, challenging, being confrontational, get, oh, you want to raise your voice, I raise my voice. And it's easier to, as we think back, if we're not in that, in the moment with a hostile conversation or argument, to say what we would do. Unless we, are really working on the techniques or our coping skills and say, you know what, as this person get loud, let me bring my voice down.
Yes, with me, my problem with that used to be because when I was younger, you get the street mentality, like, yo, you're not gonna punk me. So we get that thing in us to where, like, yo, I'm not, and it's not really you getting, like, I learned, now I'm older, so now I've learned that, you know what, it's actually smarter to just be quiet, because now, like, you know, they just got you. Now they just ruined your whole day for no reason. You know what I mean? So it's just like, for what? Yeah. You know, I've learned that through life, but a couple years back, I'd be like, yo, you're not gonna punk me. I'm not that guy. But, you know, age and experience and going through life teaches you that. You know, and I still do it to this day. I'm not gonna say, you know, I have my moments where like, damn, I should have just been quiet. I should have just kept my mouth shut. But, you know, you live and you learn.
Absolutely. You know, when I was in the therapeutic community program, we used to call that stinking thinking. You know, you ain't gonna punk me, you know, going back to our old behaviors, you know what I mean? That's like a form of relapse, you know. It's not a addiction relapse, but it's more like, are we able to control our anger? You know,
addictive behavior.
Are we able to, you know, deal with our emotions? Are we able to identify them at that given time? And so, like I said, I'm guilty of it myself. Oh man, you know, because I always like say to myself, I don't want people. I try my best not to allow people to bring me out of my character. But when somebody do that, I feel like I failed. I said, oh man, I allowed that person to bring me out of my character. And so it's work. It's constantly work, and that's why our recovery is constantly work. You know, because there's a lot of underlying factors that we got to address as well. Not only the substance of alcohol and drugs, but also anger, abandonment, whatever, you know, anxiety, depression. All these things have to be addressed as well. And we have to deal with it effectively. And so a lot of times we may have to use professional help, which we always learn. It's best to get professional help or get some type of counselor or therapist, you know, or what they call them, a sponsor, you know, somebody, or accountability partner that we say, you know what, you know, this person right here, or I was in this situation, this what took place, and then, you know, we each one teach one. We can always help one another. Just like we're doing now, we're trying to figure out what is the best solution to handle a hostile situation. Because go ahead. No, I was gonna say one of the things that an older professional lady taught me was she told me, she said, you have to learn how to deal with confrontation, not to be too confrontational. If you can get over that, then you'll be good.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback on that because, you know, on where I'm at in my walk in recovery, I've learned that it's like you said, not the substances or any, you know, or the active addiction, but the certain people that's may still be in your life when you were, they know what buttons to push.
That's right.
So, you know, part of my recovery, I'm speaking for myself, is, you know, placing myself around, like you said, mentors, accountability partners, placing myself around people, you know, that I know for sure, you know, aren't going to push my buttons on purpose, you know, and, you know, wean myself away from these people and, you know, less of that and more of this. You know, and it's like you said, behaviors, you know, and I've realized that, you know, in the heat of the moment, you might not know it, but if you're, you know, strong in your recovery, you'll realize that. You'll say, this person is only pushing my buttons. They got me this time, so next time I know how to react. I'm not going to let that person get the best of me.
That's right. That's right. Good, man. Thank you guys for sharing, man. I appreciate it because that's what makes a group discussion, a healthy group discussion, when we have the interaction, when we can feed off one another with information. You know, now I know we normally do a 30-minute session, and so I'm not gonna press you too much. But next week we're gonna get a little deeper. We may go back into this because I think this is something, man, that we all can learn how to better interact with our loved ones and with people, whether it be at work, at school, in the store, because, you know, sometimes people may hit you in the back of your heels with the grocery cart, you know, and things like that. How do we respond? Somebody might step on our big toe. You know, we've been standing up, working all day, or whatever. But it's just giving you some scenarios that can play out on things that can happen. So we're going to end it right there, man, until next week, man, because I know you guys been working. I know Will been working. I know Mr. Serrano, he's been working. And so I thank both of you guys for being a part of this right here. All right, until the next week, man. Y'all take care.
All right.
All right, man. Yep. All right, man. Good stuff. Yeah. See, that's why it's so important to have like a room, you know, of discussion. Now, I know if they see this later on, they can say, I know. I don't know if the camera rolling, but anyway, that was a good discussion that we had because we could have went on to eliminate unhealthy relationships. Yeah, and that's what you just talk about. Yeah, you know what I mean.
So I'm kind of like, I don't want to say I'm there. I could be there, but I got a person in my life that's giving me the run for my money.
They give you a run for your money.
You know, I'm working on a lot. Like I said, I've been clean for quite some time. You know, I would like to say I was clean before I was clean. You know, I went back, screwed up, and so this is my, I'm like you said, change my mindset, change my behaviors. Yeah. You know, revisiting my faith. And that's what's happening, was really consuming me right now at this moment. But I got this person that's in my life. See, what I do is I was just in a situation involving my employment. So, I mention it all the time for you. I don't like my job and people, but
some people rub you the wrong way.
But it's not my people at my job. Okay. So, I'm weaning myself out of that job and into this line of work is what I want to do. Nice. So I might, if a situation arises, I might tell a number of people, and it's always this one person with the most negative feedback. So, okay, I'm gonna tell you because it kind of. We're Saturday at the conference with Mike. Oh, okay. He didn't touch on that, but I took what he said and applied it to what I was going through at the time. Because I always been talking about, I don't know if I want to leave my job and work in this field because I don't know if it pays enough. I don't know if I could match the pay, if I could, because I'm coming into this field entry level.
Yeah, we all come, yeah.
So you can't ask for $1 million, entry level.
Yeah, and you probably get more because I know some like Amazon and Target.
I know Amazon. I know Target starts you off at 23.
23, yeah.
23. Yeah. That's a little bit more than what I make now. Yeah. But that's no, and I've been talking to Juan. I've been talking to Juan a lot lately and spending some time with him in his ministry. So I might hit him with the same dilemma I'm going through and get feedback from him. Okay. But then this person, same scenario, I'm like, I gotta, I'm going through this. What you think about it? Man, and they'll come on. First it was like, why don't you quit that job? Quit that job. they ain't promoting you. Just quit the job. It must be a girl there that you like or something. So I gotta pay my rent.
Good.
But at the same time, this is more fulfilling for me.
Mm-hmm.
So Juan, about 2 weeks ago, Juan texted my phone. I got you an interview at the Center for Family Services.
Nice.
So I was like, I kind of froze up because I was like, an interview. Now, see the way I think, addict or addiction or not, recovery or not, my brain goes all over the place. What if? Okay, in 30 seconds, I'm thinking, what if I go and what if they hire me?
All the.
And then what I'm gonna do about this job?
Yeah.
And then if they hire me, what if they don't pay me enough? And what if I don't take the job? That's what I'm taking this class for. That's what I went to class for, to get a job. So what if I don't take the job? And then how am I gonna get my hours? And so all these what ifs is coming on in my mind. So when Juan sent me that text, I was like, I don't even know how to reply to it. So I didn't reply.
Gotcha.
So I talked to another person.
Yeah.
I was like, read this text message. It was like, man, go for it, man. It's an interview. What's the worst they can do?
Right.
Just go there and see what they have to offer. That's it. And I was like, you know what? You're right. And I was like, plus, this is something I prayed about. I prayed about this.
Yeah.
And I believe God is opening these doors for me to walk in. And this ain't a prayer that I said, God, please let Juan text me if you have an interview. I prayed about this opportunity years ago when I was going through a tough time. I'm like, take me out of this and put me somewhere else. This is where I'm ending up. So, buddy of mine, he's in the church. So
gotcha.
His feedback was more faith-based. He was like, well, if God got something for you, go ahead, take it. Go for it. You don't know what's going to happen. Right. Just go there, see what they got to offer. You don't got to take it. If they hire you, if they're willing to hire you. So I was like, you know what? I just need to slow down and worry about crossing that bridge when I get there. So you know what? I texted him right back. I said, you know what? Thank you. So we actually rescheduled it for Friday. That just passed.
Oh.
Yeah, because that Friday I had a meeting at the school for my son.
Gotcha.
So Ron says, oh, that's even better because I can go with you because he wasn't free that first Friday. But the next Friday that just passed, he was free. So he says, so he was like, all right, that's even better because I'll go with you.
Yeah.
And it was, so this is Friday. Well, before I get to Friday, Wednesday. So I knew I had this interview coming up for about 2 weeks now. A week and a half. Because I think Juan texted me on a Tuesday. So instead of making it for that Friday, we made it for the following Friday. So about a week, almost 2 weeks. So Wednesday, before Friday comes, so I'm, every day I'm like getting closer and closer to Friday.
Right.
I got my clothes. What I'm wearing, and I came in here and talked to Sherry and Michelle about it, and they're like, "Yeah, get your resume. Yeah, you better call me. Send me the resume so I can go over it, so I can edit your resume for." So they're cheering me on.
Yeah, because that's their field, employment, right?
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah.
So they're cheering me on. My boy at work, he cheered me on. I work with him. We got the same job. So then my mom calls me Wednesday night. I'm ready to take it down. So I'm like, I got one more day to this interview. So my mom calls me Wednesday night. Hello? She was like, call your Uncle Vince. Call him right now because he's something important. So I'm thinking somebody passed away or something. My heart started beating, so I call him right away. He says, I got a job for you, but you start tomorrow, Thursday morning.
Wow.
So I was like, what is it doing? It's in the union.
Wow.
So, that's
less
money.
Yeah.
So he like, so I'm thinking about this job interview Friday and going in this direction. So he calling me, it's a union job, you're going to be an apprentice. The apprentices, they make more than what you make. You know, and then after he said a year and a half, 2 years, you know, they'll put you up the regular pay rate, benefits, pension. He was like, but you gotta meet to do it tomorrow morning. This Wednesday. I said, tomorrow morning? I said, yo, I gotta put my 2 weeks in. You know, I said, I got a job interview Friday.
Yeah, you can't just...
I was like, I don't know if I can do... He talking about $45 an hour. So you know what? This person, this, you know, that I'm referring to, that's always negative, you so dumb. You always follow behind somebody's footsteps. Now, first they telling me to quit this job. Then they telling me to go into this. Yeah. Then they telling me, oh, you so dumb, that's less money. Why you ain't take that? So I didn't do nothing because I appreciated the opportunity and it opened my eyes like, wow, you know, because I don't got a college degree. I went to college, but I never finished. Yeah. You know, I got some education under my belt, but I never went, you know, far, and you know, I never had what I make now is the most money I ever made. You know, so you're talking $45 an hour, benefits, full benefits for me and my kids, benefits for life. It opened my eyes. So a problem I got, I froze up. I didn't make no decision. I was like, you know what? I don't know if I could do that because it's short notice. Yeah. So he was like, you know what? If you can't do it, you can't do it. There'll be other opportunities in the future. I'll let you know if another opportunity. It was like this time, because he said his friend plugged him in and told him, I need some money. Oh. You know, and he was thinking about me. So he was like, next time I'm going to tell him, you can't let me know ahead of time. Yeah. I was like, all right, good deal. That way, I was like, you know, I'll wait till next time. Then, so, you know, this particular person is telling me, oh, you so dumb. They've been saying that for days. You so dumb.
They be riding.
You a follower. You let anybody just tell you what to do. Whenever you going to live for yourself. So mind you, I'm working on my behaviors, my feedback. I'm working on my, you know, how do I
coping skills.
Cope with this? Yeah. So okay, Friday went well. We had more or less had a conversation. They let me know what they was looking for. I got Juan sitting right here, right by me. Yeah. You know, he's sitting there. We more or less had a conversation. Group. And then one of the ladies that worked there is a recovery coach, like yourself. So she comes out the office and talks to me. Yeah. And she saved too. So she was trying to, and then Juan's sitting there like, oh yeah, he's a believer. So she was like, I was trying to get it out of him. So now you know, it's like, you know, and I just explained to them where I'm at and how I want to contribute to my community, because it's right there in Selma. They not from Selma.
Oh, they outside.
You know, so they work in Selma. Yeah. So I explained to them, you know, my perspective of where I come from, and the changes I want to. So they, you know, it went well, and it made me feel good. And then I go to the conference the next day, Saturday, with my wife, and one of the guy I was sitting next to.
Oh, the black guy?
Yeah. I don't know if you left, because towards the end you left. Yeah. So I don't know if you was there when he mentioned, how do you make a decision when you trap between making a decision? And he made a reference to the book of Isaiah. He made a reference, I don't think it was the book of Isaiah, but he made a reference to Isaiah. I don't know if
I was there when he asked Mike, and Mike was telling him, I think the response was, allow God.
So I took that and applied it to because I'm trying to make a career decision, and then I let the money go. The money was right there. Mm-hmm. I could have just dropped everything. This was Wednesday night. I could have been there Thursday morning. New path, new career path. Doing. He ain't tell me what it was. He just said the union. He said
labor though, basically labor. Yeah, you trying to get out of the labor.
I'm trying to get out of labor. You know what I mean? But the money, you can't. So this is the thing. It ain't about the money. And you know, Mike said something, but the other pastor said something too. The white guy.